time to spill the secrets.
This is Universal Secrets with Tiffany Mack and Kevin Hale.
Tuesday night. You know what that is. What that is. That means.
It's Universal Secrets with Tiffany Mack and Kevin Hale.
What's up, my friend?
I feel like yelling at you for some reason.
All right. Eventually, I'll do something or say something where you'll raise your voice
and scold you.
Scold me. Put me in my place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Happy Tuesday. It is August 24th, 2021, and it is hot as hell here in Louisville. Heat index, I think it hit 103 or 104 today.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Only for hoodie weather.
Yeah, and it's humid too, so it just makes it nasty.
What does it do to your hair?
Oh, I usually have it back in a ponytail, so it really doesn't matter.
Or
I'm
like
not
I saw you the other
worried
day
about it. I did. Yes. When I came over to get some stuff that we'll talk about.
We'll talk about
it later. Yeah.
Yeah. It is, again, Universal Secrets here on this Tuesday night, streaming live on our Facebook, Twitch, YouTube channels, the video, the audio via ERT radio shows. Tiffany, we've got an interesting show tonight. Author, artist, abductee, all those A's. It's like the triple A of ufology right there. Right?
There you go.
Ron Kinsella. He's over. We're gonna bring him on a little bit, but let's give the man props right away. He's in London, or somewhere around London. He's 5 hours ahead of us. So right now it is 1:05 a.m. Ron time.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's pretty dedicated.
Yeah. I mean, I did ask him pre-show how many Mountain Dews, because it's a Mountain Dew thing. People get jacked up on Mountain Dew,
right?
Caffeine or coffee, maybe in this case. So, what's been up?
Not much, I'm just happy that my girls are back in school and we're trying to get back into that routine. So up and at them early, which I'm not a big fan of, but
and you have to get up with them.
6:20. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, after the nice summer of relaxation, I'm gonna be getting up again.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I'm glad that they're back in school, so I cannot complain.
Some normalcy there, slowly but surely. As always, good to see you. Good to see and hang with our friends online. Tiffany, do the honors. Who's hanging with us tonight?
Oh my gosh, tonight we've got a ton of people. Let's see. We've got Andy Morrow, who chimes right in. This time he was
Andy's
in there
across
at
the pond too.
5:56 p.m.
Yeah, which is 10ish, or I'm going on, I guess 5:56, going on 11.
Yeah.
Or
yes.
Yeah, 11 his time. So
I think some of these people are multitasking. Let's see. Ron Charles Smar. We've got Bobby. Let's see. Sherry Trimble. Oh, she says hashtag Tiffany Tuesday, hashtag Hail Yeah Tuesday. And then hashtag 50 Shades of K. Oh, I like that one too. Yep, there's Tom in there. Oh gosh, Maria Duff. I did see Erica Erica Barnes, Greg O'Brien, Yuffie. Oh, we haven't seen you in a little while, Yuffie. Let's see, everybody's here. American Road Warrior.
They're all accounted for, huh?
They're accounted for, yeah. And I guarantee you we're going to get a few more as the night goes on. So,
and they always bring their comments and questions for the guests.
Yeah.
A lot of good interaction.
Yeah.
Well, Tiffany, before we turn the video audio on for Ron, you and I are kind of twins tonight to a degree.
I know. We are.
Can you raise up a little bit?
I don't know if I can. Let's see.
Try it.
Okay.
We splurged. The merch is here.
We splurged. Yes. Oh, you just did a quick up and down. I got you.
They got what
the
it
gist.
Like. Yeah, that's where we are. The
Shake it, Kevin.
Shirt. Yeah, I was during the intro music, but all right. Yeah. So you and I we connected. What day was it? Was it? Yesterday. Made our little exchange, and then we're going to talk about this event that we got in October a little later. But show this off. Now, who's this?
This is my big girl, Molly. She just started 7th grade, and she is wearing our t-shirt. And I got little throw blankets made. So we're going to have those. And they're super soft. Brent said, it probably wouldn't cover his legs. But, not all of us are as vertically privileged as he is. So it fits me fine. How's that, guys?
Yeah. It looks great. We're going to talk about that more later. So without further ado, Ron Kinsella.
Hello, Kevin. Hello, Tiffany.
I hope you all are having a great evening, because I know it's just so late, and I appreciate you coming on and hanging with us and letting us get to know you. So we're really excited.
Well, that's one way to look at it. You could say it's so late, or you could really say it's so early. It depends on that. But anyway,
I think the early is nice because it's positive.
It is. What is it? 1 a.m. 1:09 a.m. there. Ron, thanks so much for doing this. Good to have you on. You and I have actually chatted for probably a few months trying to get this date squared away, but we're here. Glad to have you on. I mentioned during the kind of a brief intro, artist, author, abductee. There's probably some more A words that we could probably describe you, but give us a little bit background with you without getting into the whole UFO thing, alien thing. Give us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm 52 years old. I think I am 52.
Younger than me.
Sometimes you can't remember. I'm a twin, as you know. Philip is 7 minutes older than myself, and don't I know it, boy? Don't I know it? We've moved around in life. We've lived in Bicester, and then we moved to South Africa. We were supposed to live there permanently, but due to circumstances, we came back. So we're there for a year and a half. We were on the outskirts of London, then Luton, then Bedfordshire. So we're not gypsies, as one lady once said to me. She said, "Do you have any roots?" Well, I didn't know at the time what that meant. I just said no. Oh, are you gypsies? The polite word for that is travelers. No, we're not.
Did you have the covered wagon and everything? Is this why she sort of suspected, maybe?
It reminds me of that film, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where the master, what was his name, Frollo, said, wasn't it Frollo? Yes, he said, gypsies don't do well inside stone walls.
Oh,
I take people off when you're asking about that. When Philip and I were younger, we used to mimic people, and we'd take them off with behind their backs. We used to when we were children, we used to do little plays. We'd take these people off and impersonate their voices. And actually, we've got them right down to a T, a lot of them. Yes, we'd do their voices. The teachers, they never knew the pupils, some of them that were interesting. But that's basically what Philip and I did as kids. We for our entertainment, we didn't have PlayStations then, as you know, and Xboxes, but we just had record players and just acted because I wanted to be an actor of all those. But that never took off anyway. So the artistic element was there.
That is Tiffany's mother, by the way. She loves the accent. Miss London. I'm assuming she's saying she misses London,
Yes,
right?
she misses
Not Miss
London.
London.
Yeah.
It's funny, and it is funny to me. I was on YouTube earlier, and I was during my day work, letting YouTube kind of play, and one of the videos that came on was the Charlie that hurt, and do you know what a video I'll talk about, Ron? The little kid, the English kid, where Charlie, the kid, the brother bit him. And am I saying this right, Tiffany?
I'm not sure which movie you're
it's a YouTube video that's probably got 1 billion views.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, okay.
No, I don't. But my youngest daughter talks with a little British accent sometime. I'm like, where the heck did you get that?
Look at that.
There's our Tracy Austin. She says, I can't do it.
You can't.
I can't do it.
Yes, she's got that accent too. Tracy, Ron, y'all need to connect. Just saying that. We alluded to the again, author, artist, abductee. Before we get into the abductee part, the artist part, how long ago did you learn to stay between the lines?
Oh, good Lord.
I'm still struggling.
But do you know, that's something that's very interesting because I find it very difficult myself. One, I'm colorblind, partially colorblind. So I once painted a green horse and thought it was brown because it was dark green. It's the shades, you see, the shades. But a friend of mine, Brandon Thomas, bought me very kindly a pair of the colorblind glasses that actually are wonderful. So, and that was very kind of him to do that. Yeah, he had them sent to me. So do
they actually work?
Colors. They accentuate the colors. Yes, you can see much clearer with them on.
I really didn't know that.
I can anyway. But I turned to digital about 7 years ago because the good thing about that is that it has a set color wheel. So when you learn where the yellows are or the greens and browns, you can't make a mistake. So I can't paint a green horse again. But it's been challenging for me. I'm self-taught with the art. I did do traditional. I've done the oils. I've done the acrylics, the pencils. When you move on to digital, there's a bonus about that is it's clean. There's no cheating to it. I mean, one time I had someone say to me, you use a computer, you cheat. They're so ignorant of the fact that you can't cheat on it. I suppose now you can import images and things, but the point is that it's just clean. It's like a clean canvas. So that's how I've moved from traditional to digital, and it is beneficial because of the color wheel. And I won't be painting any green horses anymore. That was embarrassing. But when I told them I'm colorblind, they understood.
Didn't Picasso paint blue horses? Something. Who was the one that painted blue horses? There was somebody famous. Obviously not famous enough for me to remember because my memory is shot these days.
How long ago are we talking? They're not going to probably be a guest down the road, and we've just
I could have just burned us big time. Yeah. Do you have a favorite application, or app that you use for your art, your digital art?
Yeah, ZBrush or ZBrush. It's a sculpting software. It's a 3D sculpting software. This is where people say when I was producing these models, I cheat, which I don't. There's no point in cheating. I've never been like that. I've never cheated. I did cheat once at school at spelling, and when I was 9 years old, got good hiding. I think that's the only time I've cheated. But it's ZBrush. So, a number of studios and which is brilliant as well. They help with the paint afterwards. So the ZBrush is brilliant because when you build the model up, when you create it, when you actually get it ready to format into a picture, if you don't like that angle, you can turn it around and then you can do that angle. You see what I mean? And the brilliant thing about digital is if you make a mistake, you just push a button, go one step back. You know, you can erase the problem. Whereas when I used to work with acrylics, if you use paints, you had to paint over them white and let it dry and then try and go over it again. So the digital technology is a blessing, actually.
Yeah. And then the number of, if you do it too often, it just looks clumpy and hard to deal with. But that's amazing. I dabble in the arts, but my daughter has perfected this type of drawing that she does on her own, but she uses Procreate as the app. So it's always good to know what other people are using, because the technology is advancing every day. So it's not just UFO technology, it's art as well. So
yes, I mean, it's all down to personal preference with what you use. I mean, I'm happy. It took me 7 years to learn ZBrush, to grasp all the paraphernalia of it, how you use this, how you use it. And I had to do that myself. There were some tutorials on YouTube, which is brilliant for that, where if you're not sure how certain things work, you can go and have a look. But it's an amazing application, ZBrush. And it's been a blessing to me because I just keep pushing and pushing for the art to improve. And you see people tend to make a mistake. They think once they have ZBrush, they can create masterpieces. You can't. I made the same mistake when I got it, although I'm an artist, an amateur artist, I'd call myself, but self-taught. I didn't realize how much you had to learn. And this will make you laugh. The first model I made 7 years ago was so crude when I look at it now. And I was so impressed with this 3D art. I mean, it looked like one of those lumpy pigs, that you see in the shops. It looks so crude. I was so excited. I sent it to a top art magazine and said, look at this. I never heard back from them.
That's funny.
Room for improvement, I think. So it's taken 7 years. Yeah.
We have some pictures. Kevin, did you want to pull up one of those pictures? Can you pull up one?
I do have one that I've added to for the show, but we'll go to his website in a little bit. But where'd you go? There. Look at that thing.
Yeah.
Look at what thing?
On the screen.
Hold on, I can't see anything.
Really?
No, but go ahead.
Oh well, it's the image. It's a cover to his book, The Digital Demon. I guess it's a good segue. Countdown to Disaster. Let me take this off because Tiffany can't see it. I'm not sure why. Are we? I think. Stop clicking. All right, I had to raise my voice.
On and off. Yeah, it works.
She had a look on her face. So let's now go back in time. It's the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
All right. Floor is yours.
Okay. 1982. I never believed when I was younger in UFOs. I had no interest in them. Certainly anything to do with the paranormal, even back then, it was taboo. I mean, this was a time, it wasn't paranoia, but it was just a laughable dinner table topic. And we had no interest in them. Philip and I had none. Although something strange happened to me when I passed a church once with my grandmother. This is the beginning of it. I went shopping with Grandma and we passed this church. And they have the, like the glass mosaic patterns in there. They had an image of what I assumed was God, a face of him in the window of this church. And I was probably about 11. And when we passed it, I said to Grandma, I just pointed at it and said, that's not God. God doesn't look like that. And she looked at me and she looked very peculiar. She didn't say anything about it, but I just knew that wasn't God. It couldn't be anyway, even now. I don't know why I said it. I was ignorant of the Bible and ignorant of religion, but I just knew that wasn't God because I would have thought that, well, how can it be? He's never incarnated, At the time, I wouldn't know what incarnation meant, but I just knew, the basics. you know.
At that
So
young
this was
age, if
really-
you would have said it, it would have definitely sounded good.
yeah, but you know, but people would take it or leave it, you know that. But my grandmother was psychic, and that added to the intrigue. You know, we didn't understand as children what psychic meant really. We just thought it was like a lady sitting in a tent with a crystal ball, you know, and foretelling the future. But she was psychic. And an incident happened, the first of these UFOs, although I think there might be more later on. We can't be sure. I can't clarify that. I've had snippets that are flashbacks now. I mean, it's amazing how this happened. There's no tangible substance to it. I can't talk about that moment because it's just too brief. But they're feelings I have, and also images. And they were of the Greys, what we call the Greys. Anyway, in 1982, the first of these, the strongest, was when we were in the garden with Grandma. She lived with Grandfather in Tatchbrook Road in Middlesex. Great big house it was, loads of windows on it, 3 stories high. We used to stay there for summer. And I can't remember the day. I mean, it's ridiculous. I had someone actually say to me, well, why didn't you know the day and time? You're 13 years old. I didn't keep a diary. And it's not just an excuse to bat out of it. Even when it happened, we tried to forget it because, as I said, in this time, the subject was taboo. I mean, it still is now. Let's be honest, it is now, but it was even greater back then, taboo. We're in the garden with her one summer. It was 1982. I know that absolutely, and I'll tell you why.
And you were
We had
13 at the time, correct?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're in the garden with Grandma, and she was hanging out. I think she was hanging out washing. Philip contests this. He said we were buzzing around her, but she was there in the garden with us because they had an old clothesline. I can't remember if she was hanging out washing or what. But what is important is that from the rear of the garden, this sphere approached, and it was silver. Now, when this advanced towards us, we first of all automatically assumed, as you do, it's a balloon. We did have silver balloons then. I think they're quite common. But the way it moved was it arched over the back fence and headed straight for her. And it was like on a trajectory towards her. It was a straight line. And even as it was approaching, I kept thinking it was a balloon, but it was bizarre. I mean, it was early afternoon, it was breezy, and it was quite nice. The weather was bluish, the sky, there was a bit of cloud in the sky, but this was really low. And it shot over to Grandma and then stopped above her head. And as to height, I would say it was level with a second bedroom window, if that helps, the average second floor of a house. That's how high it was. It stopped over her head, and it just remained motionless.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, it was. These have been close. The ones Philip and I have seen have been very close. It hung over her head. It was the size of a football. The size of a football, and it just hovered there. There was no sound. I had a damn good look at this.
Hold on. You said size of a football. You're saying size of an actual football, or you're talking about the football field?
No, it's the size of a football itself.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
the actual ball.
Okay, that's small.
Yeah,
Yeah,
small.
okay.
And it was so low, I could see beneath it. There was no cord. It looked heavy. It was silver, and it appeared slightly grimy, but that might be due to the reflection, the tarnished look it has, you know, of the surroundings. But it just hung over Grandma's head, and I could see no notch, no cord, nothing. It had no symbols on it. It didn't hum as I've been asked. It didn't make a sound. It just remained static. Now, Philip and I knew we were being watched. I just felt, as I was looking up at this bizarre thing, that we were being observed. And it was like something from Doctor Who. I remember thinking this is so, at the time, you're thrown because there's so many things going through your head. But you can't believe this thing. It's not a balloon. It's just hanging there. And I felt as if it was observing us, as I said. And Philip and I were pointing up at it. We said to Grandma, look at this. Look at that. And she looked up, and she wasn't even phased. She turned round and said something very peculiar to Philip and myself. She said, "Oh, look, the fairies have come to take a closer look." And that's all she said. We gathered her response was so we wouldn't be frightened. You see, she always protected us. And I knew upon looking at this thing it wasn't fairies. Well, then it began to move again. After a few minutes, I think it just hovered there, just overhead. It remained static. It was breezy. It then moved towards the second bedroom window, and it stopped. I gather it was looking in. I can't be sure. It then went up to the third window, stopped, went up above the roof, and over. So Philip and I, we raced inside to see the opposite end of the road to see if we can catch this thing. And we did. It crossed the roof, and then as it was moving off, it went and just shot off, disappeared. That was the summer of 1982. The subject, as I said, we didn't say much about it. It was very weird, extremely weird. So that was the first encounter, the conscious encounter of these things. Now, people will say that what you saw was perhaps atmospheric distortion. Well, it might have been, but it was physical. It was a silver ball. So I don't know what they're talking about, ball lightning or anything. The weather was quite calm, apart from being breezy. Some will say that it's military hardware. Now, I contested this on the grounds that in 1982, technology was still its infancy. I know we're talking about the military, but come on, anti-gravity drives. And even if they could perfect such astounding tech, they wouldn't flaunt it over civilian airspace. Why would they be observing a grandmother with her two grandsons? They wouldn't even bother, So that ruled that out. So what it was, I cannot say. It's what we call high strangeness. And people say, was it this, was it that? The thing that I thought about this sphere was the fact that it did later on in life, when I wanted to investigate this because we had been down the rabbit hole, it reminded me more, and I made this quite clear in my book, that when I looked at this in the Foo Fighters, not the group, the actual Foo Fighters that followed aircraft during the Second World War, they tailed them or dogged them. It was like them. Although this wasn't glowing, it reminded me of things, the spheres of light. Could these be in actual fact cameras or some kind of electronic eyes used by an intelligence we are very unaware of? It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah. Ron, you mentioned, I want to get it clear, the sound. Was there, when it was overhead, was it silent or was it quiet? I mean, was there a sound at all, or maybe
no sound?
An object over your head, totally quiet.
Yeah.
And when it shot off, did you hear anything?
Nope. No sonic boom. Nothing. It was just as still as anything. There was no sound to it. It was silver. It looked heavy, the size of a football. And
I'm reminded in England, football, they're round. The American way. Yeah, it's
I beg your pardon. Yeah, I do.
My fault. Yeah.
But yes, it was very, very bizarre, very strange. We didn't speak about it. Philip and I did quietly, but we believe Grandma was speaking to someone on the phone later that night on the old landline telephones. We didn't have mobiles then. Or computers as such, but she was on the phone. I think she was telling someone about it. And then it was quietened up until the next big one that happened in 1982, the winter of 1982.
So these are seasonal. These are seasonal visits?
No, because after the second one, I never saw the doctors again. That's what I call them, what I saw. I never saw them again. I've seen the UFOs, but never them. This was only, and as far as I know, apart from something to do with the greys, I'll explain that in a minute. I don't know what that's about. That's not tangible. Okay. This was the winter of 1982 was the big one, and I didn't know whether I was right in assuming that after all this happened, much later when I wanted to investigate it, when you be down the rabbit hole, you're not going to leave it, are you? I certainly wouldn't. Is that were they connected? Was this probe or this thing, this sphere, theirs? Were they observing their goods prior to snatching? We don't know. It could be coincidental. They're connected somehow. I think we were being observed for whatever reason, I don't know. But shall I jump into the encounter with the doctors now? Yes.
Before, I gotta. You
Okay.
mentioned your grandmother referred to them as fairies. What's the rhyme and reason there?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like, oh, here we go again. They're back, kind of thing. So, what's the
Yes, it's
explanation?
as if she'd seen them before.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
sort
she
of a
wasn't
question that
phased
I've
at all.
had. That's sort of a question that I've had throughout the years when people talk about fairies in that region. They don't necessarily distinguish fairies as good, fun, lovely beings. A lot of times they kidnap babies, they kidnap children, they kidnap beautiful people, and they talk about the time travels differently with the fairies. Do you think that there may be a connection between the sort of traditional folklore in your region and fairies versus the new term aliens?
Yes, I do, because I mentioned it in my book. It's published in there. The trolls, goblins, fairies, are these things manifested by a force that can portray itself in different manners? I think so. I mean, before we go on to the abduction, the greys, I will state, are they really the true McCoy? Are we seeing the real thing? Now I'll explain what I mean by that. Is you will have people who are resolute that that is them. They come from a star system. I'm not painting all with a clean brush. Is it possible there's something here that can copy them? Or are they engineered or manufactured? Or are they is operated by a force that can puppeteer them, as we would send probes to Mars to act as our eyes and ears? Is there a force at work that can actually manifest them to work on its behalf? I've tried to look at every aspect of these. I don't believe we're seeing the real McCoy because they change so often. And you will have people say then, how dare I suggest that there's only one kind of alien force in effect? I'm not stating that. It's just a theory based on this. Is it possible that they're conjured by something far greater we don't know? And it seems to change faces to suit what's in vogue. We had the Nordics, and we had, before that, the goblins, now the greys. What's it going to be in another 100 years' time? Are they going to change again? It's and also they may not be from outer space. It could be that they're interdimensional or from another dimension. People quite often keep referring to them coming from outer space. Well, most of it's dead, and not being unkind, but we're only even beginning to understand or appreciate how to actually reach Mars. If they're so advanced, yes, they might be able to open portals or create wormholes to reach here, but where from? People have been looking out. We should be looking in. And I trust my instincts. I think they are interdimensional. And I don't think the greys are what they appear to be, because they can play with your mind, you see. They toy with you. And an example of this comes now with the doctors. I'll explain to you the encounter I had with them. This might be a big giveaway about what they're capable of doing, because for years when I saw these doctors, I believed them to be the actual things, until recently I have a friend, Neil Geddes Ward, who's a brilliant artist. He's a friend of mine. He also runs a radio show. He got in touch with someone who deals with hypnosis or regression, and he mentioned about these doctors and their Cheshire cat, as well, I'll come to in a minute. And immediately he just said to him that the greys are very fond of passing themselves off as doctors and using cartoons to cover or screen memories. So if that is the case, I'll have to have regression. I haven't had regression, but I've seen this to you raw. It's taken me a long time to consider whether I should be regressed. I don't want to be led down the garden path. They have to be forensically minded, a professional. But I haven't been regressed yet with this encounter. But it did happen. as I am sitting here talking with you, this is how it happened. I was awake. And you will be amazed at the amount of people who will try and say to you what you had was sleep paralysis. They will give you everything other than what it could have been. I was the only one who saw them. That's a nasty thing. And that works in their favor, you see. That's the insurance they have. Also of the mockery, of the utter folly that people will refer to you as a lie, you in alternative or an artist. You're broad, in that department. So we'll get to this abduction now. This was the winter of 1982. We lived in Luton, a quite large Victorian house. They were all large. It didn't mean to say we were rich, but we were very privileged to have a big house, big rooms. Philip and I at the time shared a bedroom. They were so big, they were huge. We shared one. And it was at the front of the house. And again, I did not log the date or time, or, it was winter. Remember that?
Were you children or teens?
They're still in the early teens.
Right? 13 years old.
Okay, so early teens. Okay.
13. Yeah, the sphere was in the summer of that year. We saw with Grandma, and then this happened at winter. And Philip and I, as I said, I was basically one night taken from my bed. I was snatched. Now, at the time, I couldn't put any of this together. I was thrown and confused. I didn't know what they were, what to make of it. As I said, I was ignorant of UFOs until much later and this has taken me a lot of thought, not to colour the incident. I never do that. I don't colour anything. That's the worst thing you can do. But I'll give it to you straight. I was snatched. I was taken straight up. And this is how bizarre it is. Through the loft or attic, right through it, up into the sky. There was something dark hanging there. Something very dark. I couldn't discern what it was. I know space is dark, but this was blacker. It was huge. Something was hanging there. Well,
so it looked like something that was cloaked, maybe?
No, it was just black. It was like a shape there. Because it was dark, I couldn't see or discern. And because of my rate of ascent going up, it was too quick, but there was something hanging there.
Let me ask you a question.
You're quite right. Could have been
let me ask, you say snatched. So is it fair to say you physically felt this? I mean, snatches, to me, you're jerked, and you would have felt this. Yeah, I've heard stories where they just floated and blah blah blah. So you really okay. Okay.
Snatched. Yes, I think there's an apt description. Okay. It just snatched up, and I entered this thing, and I appeared, or I was materialized, or was really in this very modern-looking wheelchair. It was, I gather, I know I'm colorblind, but I know the basic colors, the primary colors, white. Mm-hmm. I think it was white or very light. I was in this very modern-looking wheelchair in a room that was not brilliantly lit, but it was light, a medical feel it had to it. And I was in this wheelchair, and I couldn't move. I could move to a degree, but I was partially paralyzed, you see. And I noticed, what's interesting, to my left, I could notice a lot, but to my right, I couldn't remember a thing, what was to my right. But the wall curved round it, medical field, because ahead of me, there were three strange men standing before an operating table, or what appeared to be an operating table. You're trying to draw your surroundings and everything. First in mind was the room and the men. I call them men. They were armored. They were clothed from head to toe. The gas masks worn in the Second World War that they wore? These were ultra-modern, like the wheelchair, completely ultra-modern. And these men were standing, as I said, there were three of them, standing before this operating table. They didn't say anything. They just stood there, impassive. Now, when I realized that I was in some kind of hospital, but I knew it wasn't right. It was all wrong. It was all wrong. This was a hospital at all, but it had a medical environment, a medical feel to it. I knew there was something behind me, or someone was standing behind me. Don't ask me why, you just have this feeling. And my instincts were correct, there was, because he spoke. I couldn't see him. Because I was partially paralyzed, I tried to turn, but I could not turn to see him. Now thinking about it, it's as if I'm not to see him. I wasn't meant to see him. But he was the one in charge. And because the first thing he said, and his first sentence, I have never forgotten his exact words. He spoke British. This sounds bizarre, but I'll get to that in a minute. Middle-aged, authoritative voice, like a doctor you'd come to expect from. He said, "We are going to perform an operation on you, Ronald." Now, when he said my name, I flinched because I didn't know who he was, but he knew who I was. And I thought, an operation. But I noticed to my left there was a utensil rack, and it had some utensils in it. I didn't take much note of them at that time. Now, for some strange reason, I pleaded and begged with him. There seemed to be some urgency in his voice. And this becomes apparent because I told him, no, please, I don't want this operation. For some reason, I kept thinking it was something to do with the head. That was from me. I don't know why. I thought perhaps they have to do something to the brain. I'll give it to you straight. That's what entered my head. They're going to operate on my head. So I pleaded and begged with this person, or whoever it was I could not see. Now, he then told me, he said, this has to be done. It is for your own good, Ronald. You have to have this, but I promise you, we will not harm you. Now, which order that was, I cannot remember, but I remembered it clearly, what he said. He said, we are not, I trusted him. This is how crazy it is. Although I couldn't see him, I didn't know what they were very strange, I trusted him on that. I knew they weren't going to hurt me, but there was this urgency to do this operation, this elusive thing. Now, there's some problems with this, because if you remind me, if I forget, about the amnesia. So I was begging with him, and I was crying. I cried in front of them. The three ahead of me just stood there, absolutely impassive. But this one in charge, he wasn't having any of it. I was in their grip. I was paralyzed to a degree, and I was at their total mercy. So I begged him. I just kept begging him, please, no, I don't want the operation. Well, he then leaned over, and he took a utensil from the rack. Now, this I had a good look at. It was, in layman's terms, it's just like a pencil with a nodule on the end, but it was all silver. You get the idea. He took this, and then he took, very gently, he took my left hand, and he pressed the nodule right there. And I wished I had foresight to count how many digits he had on his hand. You don't. At the time, you're not thinking of that. You're terrified about what's going on. Yeah. When he pushed the nodule on here, bang, I went out like a light. Now, what's interesting, before I carry on with this, what's interesting, I'm not medically minded. I'm ignorant of any medical procedure. I've never had any operation in my life. But recently, I had to have an operation on my prostate. I had to go under. And our natural doctors, when they put the needles in, it was in the same place he put the nodule. That's what came to mind. I thought.
Did it hit you like a ton of bricks when that happened at that moment? Did it just like?
You mean with the natural doctors?
Yeah. All of a sudden, just took you back. Is what I'm saying.
Within a few. Well, not even a minute with our natural doctors. But what the strange doctor did. I went out like a light. Bang! I was out.
I'm wondering about like acupressure, acupuncture. I wonder if there's something to that specific area that maybe is a pressure point. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be, but
When I had the natural operation, that's where they put the needles. But the
Right.
unnatural doctor, when he put the same place, I kept thinking when I had the operation with our natural doctors, well, damn, that's where he put the nodule. You see, I remember it. So I'm never
Mhm.
going to
Mhm.
forget this. Never. So
Mhm.
bang, I went out like a light. So the next thing, I'm being ejected from this thing in the sky. I'm being ejected. They'd evidently done what they were going to do. God knows what they did. There was no scarring on me afterwards, nothing. And I did look.
Did you have
I
any
remember
pain
now.
whatsoever?
No, no pain. But they ejected me out. It was still dark. Now I dropped back to the house and I was on my own. And the strange thing is, when I went up into this thing, there was no sensation. But when I came down, there was distinct whoosh, whoosh, not a sound. It's like this static wave running through me. A wave, a wave. Every hair on my body felt electric, as if it was all standing on end.
You know,
I
some
went,
people like to relate sort of out of body experiences, and sometimes they say they weren't physically removed from their home, but their soul was removed from their home and their body. Do you think that maybe there was a separation? Maybe it was more of an astral situation that day or that night? Could that have been part of why you felt the whoosh, but you didn't really feel?
Well, he said he had his hand, the fact that it touched his hand. So, but I guess if you touch the soul, I mean, you're
I don't know. We've
yeah,
talked
that's
about
fair.
this
All right.
I
before,
don't
you
know.
know?
I don't know. It's possible. I mean,
You
I
didn't
don't
have a
know.
feeling
I'm
of that though. So you had this whoosh and then you were back in your
Yes, yeah. It
in
was
your
like
room.
it was very mechanical. It was like a whoosh,
Mhm.
whoosh, whoosh. But in answer to your question,
Mhm.
Tiffany, I wouldn't know. It's possible. I don't know. I mean,
Mhm.
it was happening so fast.
Right.
I don't know. Even then, I wouldn't know what our astral bodies were, or I
Right.
could not say. I couldn't say.
Mhm.
But I was dropped.
Was it completely fearful though at that point when you got back into your room? Do you feel did you feel trauma after that incident?
They left with a goodbye kiss, and I'll get to that in a moment. It was horrible. Yes, very
It was
nasty.
horrible. Oh gosh.
Mm.
Okay. So
Um,
okay.
I was dropped and back in. I went through the loft. You see, this is how bizarre it is. This is why it took me so many years to come out with it. To
Mhm.
actually publish it first in 2012. But I was dropped, and then I landed on the mattress. I was back in my room, and I distinctly remembered, as I was looking up and coming down, because they dropped me on my back on the bed. And when I felt the mattress, the bump, I felt it. That was nasty because I thought, my God, it's. I knew it was happening, but it just confirmed it. But as I was dropping and coming through the bedroom from the attic, there seemed to be like a blackness folding up or folding over. I can't explain. It's as if as I'm dropping, it's all coming together. I'm sorry, I can't explain it any further than that. It's not an elaboration. It's something new I've remembered coming down from whatever it was they dropped me from. But I landed on the bed on my back, and the feeling as soon as I hit the bed, lying like this up, was of absolute dread. I was horrified. I couldn't understand what had happened, although my mind rationalized that something strange did happen. And then something appeared on the ceiling of the bedroom. And at the time, I didn't know this was them departing or leaving their last nasty little present. Uh, and it took me 30 odd years to work out what it possibly meant because it was so bizarre and different from them. I mean, they were weird as it was, but what they did was, and even at 13, 3D tech was not very good. 3D glasses, holograms, they were primitive. No disrespect, but they're incredible now. But even now, they could not perfect what the doctors had done, or the alleged doctors, whatever they were. What they did was they projected the huge head of a Cheshire cat, their version of a Cheshire cat, on the ceiling. His head was so big it filled up the whole room, or more or less filled up the whole room. This cat was grinning down at me. Now it was wavering. I think it was electric blue. It was moving or shimmering. That might be the illusion of light, you see, moving light,
Mhm.
their trick, or some kind of clever trick. I don't know what it was, but I just knew it was some kind of hologram. even after all that. They were doing something very nasty. And this Cheshire cat was the most awfulest thing I'd ever seen in my life. He traumatized me. In fact, he scarred me. It made Lewis Carroll's version. It put it to shame. This thing was awful. It was grinning down at me. It didn't speak. It didn't. I can't remember if it moved its eyes or what. I can't remember. But it was there, and it was wavering like water. So I gather this was the illusion of the effect they were using, some kind of mirage or hologram. Some people say it was a mirage. I don't know what it was. It was just a trick, and they utilized it very effectively because I cowered from that thing.
But when you were having this, was this the first time that you feel like you've had that holographic imagery placed in front of you in your home?
Yeah.
So do you think that
Consciously, yes.
maybe the procedure that they did on your head, maybe that was a way for them to communicate a little bit more effectively in areas of maybe control or manipulation, being able
Yeah.
to project these images to give you that fear or that sense of confusion?
Yeah, absolutely, Tiffany. Anything is
Mm.
possible. I'm only relaying what, but that is cool. And this is the wonderful thing about the topic with all you're people who've really heavily looked into these are possibilities that have to be considered. I agree with you. It could have been, but
Well, I've had
consciously,
similar
this is what I saw
situations.
physically. I saw them.
Yeah, I've had similar situations. So what you're saying makes perfect sense. And I know that other people have had similar situations. So I think you're onto something. I think it's in relation or correlates to the procedure that they did.
Before we move forward, Ron, you mentioned you shared a room with your brother. Now, at any time, or especially when you dropped back in, did this awaken? I mean, was he alert or no? Or you're smiling, so fill me in.
No. He was dead to the world, and this is a trait I found when I started researching this. I found that people, with their wives, when these greys come for them, when they arrive, their partner, they shake and shake and shake them. They will not wake. It's as if they're knocked out. This is a point I'll cover before I carry on with the cat. It's the fact that what I was confused about afterwards, this alleged operation they'd done on me, is why on earth, if they can knock me out prior to an operation, why didn't they knock me out prior to snatching? If they can do it, they evidently can do it, but it's as if they want me to see them. You see, there's a psychological something there. It's very bizarre, but you see what I mean. Why do they expect? Why do they want you to see? If, as I said, they could have knocked me out, but they didn't. They did during the operation, but not prior to snatching. So it's as if they wanted me to see them. It's the only logical explanation I can come up with. I kept scratching.
Or they just made a mistake.
And they can knock people out.
They got you up, and they're like, "Oh, damn it, we forgot to knock him out."
No, I think his idea of intimidation is a fear factor, and it's a control factor. I agree with that one.
Yeah,
and I have to say, I have seen.
Sorry. Tracy's
Pardon
comment.
me?
They wanted you to see them. Tracy mentioned earlier too in the comment. Tracy, thanks for hanging out with us. That the football that you know was maybe reconnaissance. You know, doing their little spy job on which one. They both look alike, but I think Ron's our guy tonight or this winter or whatever. So
yeah. But go ahead, Tiffany. Sorry.
It's you know, I'm looking at the picture of your sort of your demon, and I've seen guys like this, and they are all about intimidation. I've had to pretty much set some boundaries, and seeing him in sort of like in this rendition that you did, it gives me chills because of how much aggression I felt out of some of them. and it's almost like they want you to know that you are just a teeny little fragile thing that can be snapped in half.
Yes, the Cheshire Cat. Your points are quite right there, Kevin and Tiffany, because the intimidation. This is where it came. You see, it took me 30 years. I must be stupid or slow to work out what the Cheshire Cat was. It was basically an insurance policy, and they knew that I wouldn't talk, because if I went to see a psychologist and told him first I'd seen the doctors and then I'd see the Cheshire Cat, well, you know what they're going to say. The doctors are your fear of hospitals, and the Cheshire Cat is just being mistaken for an over-imaginative mind. You've seen Alice in Wonderland, which I had a few years prior to that abduction. I'm not really into Alice in Wonderland, no disrespect to it, but I did see it with my grandma and granddad a few years prior to it. So they plucked, it seems, something out that was useful to them. They used it as a weapon. They weaponized the encounter. So, and to ensure swift, what's the word I can use? Discretion. They beamed it before me to act as a last nasty sting in the tail with the encounter. And as I said, I never saw them again. But as I mentioned, the gentleman who knows my friend has stated that it's quite possible. We're not saying it is them, that they're very fond of doing these things they call the greys, and they interest me very much, these greys, because the research I've done, especially with some of the kind souls who allowed me to include them in the book, the encounters they had with them are very dark and very sinister. I mean, you know, it could be that there are good ones. I'm not disputing that, but certainly focusing more on the darker aspects of them. You know, the greys.
And this is all. You're still 13, so we're just in the infancy, if you will, of your experience. We're about an hour into this, and I'm definitely going to try to be cognizant of your time. I mean, at this point, we might, if we let us, the sun might come up, and we're still talking. So, for you, so I mean, if the sun comes up for us, Tiffany, we've really lost.
We've been on way too much.
Yeah. So I guess at what point does your brother start? Does he have experiences?
His encounter with them was in 1989. So what's interesting about that is we were born 7 minutes apart, and the abductions were 7 years apart. Whether it has relevance or not, I don't know. It's just an interesting insight. So his was in 1989.
For our show purposes, yes, it does.
Yeah. His were, as Tiffany, you said, his were to do with the greys and the reptilians. Mine, I never saw them. They, as this gentleman said, it's possible that was a screen memory. I don't know, because I can't say whether it was or not. To me, it was like they were real. Well, they were real, you know, but they were very damn strange. And I must reiterate, they weren't nasty, the doctors, but they were forceful. And I remember reflecting on it again and again, reflecting on this, is that when I argued with him and I wept in front of them, I knew that they were going to do what they were going to do. Now, what's interesting about this account, whether again, like the spirits connected, I don't know. You only join the dots afterwards, but then that's vague. But I can't remember how long ago it was after the abduction, or the snatching, as I call it, with them, when they cleared off. I was in geography and I had a massive fit in the class. I had these 4 massive pains running up my head, and I collapsed and had a seizure on the floor. They had to pull me out of school. Whether that's connected with the doctors or not, I don't know. Was it possible? I mean, we have to consider all aspects of it. You know, was it possible that what they'd done was to help me? Was it possible they had corrected a problem? Was he telling the truth? And there would be residue when this happened. Of course, you go into like an aftershock, you know, but they cured the problem. I don't know. And even contemplating the fact of putting, now we're wiser to it now, I am now, a tracker in you, a chip, is what they use to track people with. They wouldn't put it in the head. Why on earth would they do that? They'd put it in somewhere far less risky than that, I would imagine. So I don't know what it is they did. I've got no idea. There was no pain afterwards. There was no scarring. I remembered, that's a good point, Tiffany. I did look. I did check my body, but there didn't seem to be anything different. It's as if it never happened. But what another interesting thing about this, and I only mentioned this in the first book about the incident I had. What's interesting about these doctors is the residue afterwards, not the fit. But after the cat, this scarred me. So I used to prop books up against the door, even though they took me through the loft, the attic. I used to put even an old guitar, a broken guitar, against the door, fearing my security had been shattered. My trust had been shattered with the dark. I hated it. I even used to prop books up my back at night in bed. And one of my friends, Brandon Thomas, made me laugh when he said, was it to try and weigh you down when they take you up? I don't know why I did it. It just screwed me up big time. But one thing I did see, and I did publish this in Twin Souls in 2012. This is not in the Digital Demon, the new book now, because I wanted to see if anyone else came out with it. What I did see in the corner of the room a few days after they had departed, whether it was a day or not, I can't remember. But there was a grinning dog in the room, and he was sitting there watching me. Now, this dog, and as I said, I have published this in 2012, so it is recorded. I'm sure it's in that book. He was sitting in the corner of the room watching me. He never moved, but he wore a grin. Now, it's dark. How on earth could I see him? But I could see him. This isn't a dream. This is what I could see, like the cat. But he only lasted a few days, but I was terrified to go and try and run for the light switch to turn it on because I was frightened he might race out and get me. But he just sat there grinning at me. As to where he was, it was further than the bed, but enough for me to actually see him. I think I saw the silhouette, but his face was visible. I could see him grinning. So the grinning dog I haven't not mentioned, but no one's mentioned it, so I'll just announce it now that I had this grinning dog. Whether he's part of it or not, whether he was residue of it, I don't know. And of course, you can see how terrible this sounds because it's like you're completely screwed in the head. That it's all mental. But I wasn't, and I'm going to say it now. I've been asked this before. I wasn't sexually abused. I wasn't on drugs. I didn't smoke anything. I was physically fit. I wasn't into UFOs. Yes, I loved Doctor Who. Most kids did then. Science fiction, a bit of science fiction, but. You see, that's a nasty thing also, is people say, well, you've imagined it, you've watched Doctor Who, or, there's they will come up with anything and everything. But I'll tell you this, if they were in my shoes, they can write to me and say, you're a liar, or you're just in it for the money. Let me tell you one thing, and I've seen these UFOs quite regularly. They've stopped now. 2016, I have seen no more. It's finished. I don't know why, it's strange. But if they were in my shoes, I wouldn't wish it upon them. I'd like to see how they'd react in front of these strange men, these doctors, how they would react. And they have the gall to write things like that when they couldn't even understand what I went through. The fear factor afterwards of what these things did, propping books against the door and the guitar, terrible. But fortunately, time is a great healer. I mean, they became distant. I didn't want to know about them because you're at school, you've got college. I didn't want to know about them, but there was always something, always a niggling thing. They always would return at the back of your head. And it's like you've been forced down the rabbit hole. You can't get out. And I wanted to know what they were. So I know it's an impossible task, of course, because this paranormal thing, the aliens themselves are like shadows. It's like they tantalize and tease you. They play with you. They play mind games. They're very smart, but you can't catch them. And that's the whole point of it, you see. That's where they're ahead. As you said so yourself, Tiffany, intimidation. You can't win with them. They're always one step ahead. But I wanted to know what they were, so I started investigating it. I would say 2010 I think I started looking into it. We were with some groups before that, but I wasn't really interested because even then, even after the doctors and everything, I thought it was hogwash. It sounds ridiculous, but I think it was my conscious self trying to push it all behind and say, don't go there. but it just keeps rising up like an ugly smell and it won't go. So I thought in the end, I'm going to come out with this. But what's funny is when I did publish the incident of the doctors and the sphere with us grandma, I did prepare for the backlash. It's when it was published, you prepare for the worst, because at work, your work colleagues, they weren't nasty, but I think now with today's technology, with all the platforms with social media and all that, they'll know
Mhm.
what I've written. And
Mhm.
when they look at you and think they're not smiling genuinely, are they wearing the
Mhm.
crocodile grin? Are they being kind? But
Mhm.
they think behind your back there's that loony bin who's been abducted by aliens. Every 5 minutes they keep saying, like you hear this intimidation from them as well. Do you know anything about this? I don't know who's worse, us or them. Even the reptilians, I think we can be far worse than them, and that's saying something about our own kind. Not being unkind, but that's true. We criticize certain aspects of them, saying how horrible they are, and yet we don't even actually take a look to see what we're doing ourselves, not just to the planet, but to ourselves.
Kevin and I talk about how there's a lot of different views on ETs, but when it comes to what you're calling the doctors, it's very reminiscent of Whitley Strieber's son. He used to say that his visitors, he would call them the doctors, and my daughter would call them the little things. So, I do get the imagery and the word choice that you've used. I think that's very appropriate.
Mm,
And we talk about stigma. There's a huge stigma, and there's a lot of trauma
mm,
when it comes to people who have been visited, abducted, who've had all of these different things that we still don't understand, and it can hurt people in ways, especially when you're young and in your formative years. It could damage you, and maybe it comes back to haunt us when we least expect it. But I think that you sound like you got through it, and rewriting and writing about these situations is a challenge for anyone, and I give you great props on getting through it and continuing your search and finding your truth and sharing it, and coworkers be damned, because they have no right to. When you turn on the TV, there's so many different shows and people coming forward with all of these documentaries and things. We're not alone, people, and if you think that we are, you need to maybe take a step back and open your eyes a little bit more, because a lot of there's a lot of things going on, and you're being able to communicate with people around the world. We are not alone, and there's millions of people who have been contacted or abducted and all over the world, not in just you know places where there's a lot of insane people. I don't know where would that be. But I
All
mean,
over,
besides my
technically.
household, but
You're not
all
alone.
you're not alone.
Yeah.
And in
yeah.
hearing you and hearing your story, it's chilling because of some of the things that sound so similar. And it's tough. It's a
Mm,
tough road.
that's quite supportive and kind, because I found that with what you're saying, Tiffany, is quite nice, because it's nice that there are similarities with these things, certainly with them as the doctors. But there
Mhm.
was something I had recently. Now, I'm told I'm psychic, but to be honest with you, I couldn't raise the skin of a rice pudding. I went to see a medium. About 20 years ago, and she was brilliant. Even then, I was a bit terrible. I didn't believe in what they could do. But this woman slapped me in the face, not literally, but with her testimony. She was incredible, and she wanted to befriend us. But she was an amazing medium, and she'd brought through certain dead people and aspects of these aliens. She told me I was psychic. Well, after that, she did some past life regression. We won't go into that now because that's a bit long-winded, but I saw 4. We didn't see what she wanted to see. It didn't come through. That was Atlantis. It didn't come through. I guess it doesn't work to order. But what she had brought through was the fact that I was psychic. So what I did was I went to Circle for 4 years. I sat in Circle, and I couldn't bring anything through, but she did state that it would start in my, I think, 40s or 30s, 40s, I think it was. Well, no, it didn't, because I sat in Circle, couldn't bring anything through. 4 years. I went there once, and someone advised that if you drink, it loosens you up. So go to Circle drunk. So I actually did. I actually went to Circle drunk. I'd had quite a lot to drink.
I'm
lady,
guessing that Circle is just like a group of survivors,
Yeah.
right? It's a therapy group.
Yeah, it's to bring,
Okay.
it's to train, it's like you sit in Circle to try and enhance your psychic gifts. But I had
okay.
none. I had none because even going drunk and loosening me up, I couldn't bring anything through in the medium. The lady in charge of it, not the one that I saw, she wasn't impressed. They could smell alcohol on my breath, and I brought absolutely nothing through. So they told me that if you drink, it loosens you up. I thought, blasted well, kill him for saying that. But I did. I went drunk, and I had a taste for it as well. But it didn't help with the psychic element. But what has happened is I think it's kick-starting, because I don't drink. I mean, I'm on medication anyway, but I don't drink. This was when I was younger. We all do, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you enjoy it, enjoy it. Or if you like cigarettes, I used to smoke as well. I don't anymore, but enjoy your cigarettes and enjoy your drink. Don't let anyone lecture over it. I was lectured enough, not by my family, but other people. So what's happened is that when this brilliant medium, Pearl, her name was, we befriended her afterwards. She told me I was psychic, and I just haven't got it. But recently, this is where the Greys, I mentioned what I saw when we were about 6, Philip and I 6. It started kick-starting. I didn't, not by command. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was chatting with a gentleman in New York. I couldn't see him. I didn't know who he was at the time. He was a potential guest to come on a show. And as I was talking to him, perfect, brilliant connection with New York. As I was talking with him, I kept seeing this sand. It was like a picture and a feeling. It was really weird. It wouldn't go. I can't explain it. It's like an image you see in your head, and it was of this sand. I nearly passed it up. This has connection to the Greys. I nearly passed this up, and I said to him, William, I'm seeing all this sand. Can you take it? This was Sunday. He said, no, I can't. I don't know what you're talking about. And I felt a bit foolish, But anyway, Monday, when I get home, there's a couple of emails from him, three emails. He said, you're never going to believe this. And photographs. He said, today I've never worked with sand, loads and loads of sand everywhere. So this was relevant to him. And I thought, well, have I time traveled? This is a psychic thing. This must be starting up. Because people will say it's coincidental. I don't believe in coincidences. This was at the time I was talking with him, and I could see all this damn sand. And I didn't understand what the sand meant. I didn't realize the symbolism. But the next day, as I said, I had these pictures from him. He was amazed. He said, my God, I've worked with sand today, loads of it, tons of it. And there's been a few more insights. It's sporadic. It's not by command. It's rather like when I'm walking, there's a film going over my eyes so I can see something else. This is how it happens. And this is what happened with the Greys. So I've always maintained I've never met them or seen them. The doctors, now I learn, could possibly be a trait of them. I'm not saying that's for definite because I don't know until I'm regressed professionally. But it was one night I was laying down, not asleep. It always happens when you're just on that brink of not sleep, but you're relaxed, you're really relaxed. This happens. And I saw it. I saw them, I saw the Greys. But what's interesting is that this is a memory of them, and I can't crack through this memory. This is when Philip and I were 6. And they are behind scrolls of parched paper, like manuscripts. They are hidden behind scrolls of paper. So what that means, I cannot say. It's as if I want to break through this paper to be able to remember this. and I can't. And I'm not going to force it. It was very brief, but it was so shocking. I was startled. Like the sand, this is how it happened. So is it possible that this interaction has happened when I was 6 as well, rather than 13 on top of that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Is
When
it is go on,
Go
sorry,
ahead,
go.
Kevin. No.
Well, is there any generational experience, prior to? Are you aware of anybody before you that had these type of experiences?
Uh, a family member, a number of them, I can't mention their names.
Of course, yeah.
They have seen them, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
not the UFOs most definitely, and some other things which I can't. I'd rather
No,
not mention, but
fine.
yes, it is, and it's become apparent even now with some of our relatives that have seen them. One of them, anyway.
Let me let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit. I want to get our audience, our friends in the chat are always, they've got great comments, great questions. I want to just scroll through some of these just to throw them out there, and then we can continue with the.
No, let me ask one question before we do that.
Okay, go ahead.
I've noticed that over the years, especially the past two years, I've had, I mean, hundreds of experiences, and I've noticed that beforehand I can identify that my body feels different. I start to get sort of like a tingling, and it's deep in my sort of stomach, and then it shoots straight to my head, and I'm like, oh, it's going to happen tonight. And do you feel anything, or do you remember feeling anything, sort of a tingling or like a
Your spidey senses going off.
yeah?
I can't remember, Tiffany. With the doctors, I cannot remember. I'm sorry, I can't. But no.
Maybe that would
But
be something that you can look at if you ever do a
Regression.
regression.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
see if you had sort of an inkling of knowledge before it was going to happen.
yeah. That's something to consider.
Mhm.
Actually, I think I have heard of that before, or vaguely it was mentioned before about this tingling. But thank you. It's something to look into, isn't it? But no,
Yes.
I can't remember.
Okay.
All right, real quick. Tracy, Ronald, did they have 3 or 4 fingers? Do you know?
Oh,
No,
Can you
I'm so
not
sorry.
see these, Tiffany?
I just logged into YouTube. My computer is frozen from my screen. I can't see hardly anything. So
Okay. All right, go ahead. Well, 3 or
With
4
the
fingers, maybe?
doctors, I didn't count his fingers. I wished I'd had foresight to count his fingers, but I never did. I think I was so frightened, and it was so bizarre. I didn't count how many digits he had on his hand. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
we
Thank
have
you. Anyway.
another question from Yuffie, and she asks, "What was the weather like during your first abduction? Do you remember having any recollection of the weather?"
Not really. No, it was winter, and it was clear. The night was more or less clear. That's all I remember. As for the day, I can't remember. I'm so sorry. The weather,
Okay.
I cannot remember.
Okay.
Ron is asking, or Radio Ron, as twins, do both of you have the same occurrences?
We've seen a number of the UFOs together, if that's what you mean. But if you're talking about, this is
Have
in
you
reference
both
to
been snatched at the same time?
apart from the greys, the paper, which I don't know what. Philip and I were there in that strange sort of knowing with the greys and the parched paper. But I can't go any further. It's not tangible to me until I can break through this memory.
Mhm.
But no, apart from that, no.
Okay. Sherry asks, going with the twin theme, did your brother have any odd feelings or dreams the night of the abduction, and ask you about it, or nothing until his own experience? So,
Nothing until I know that. Nothing until his own experience. No.
Huh. All right. Let's see.
I'm still just sort of catching up on the comments here.
Can you not? Wait a minute. Why are you not? You're not
I'm-
able to see.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just not working for some reason.
Okay, go ahead. I'll tell you what. While we're
I've
go ahead.
got one.
No, go.
Genghis Khan wants to know. Ronald. Let's see. It says, is unique, and that is why they chose to interact with him. He's wired differently. So
Yes,
Kevin
you guys
actually
are.
says that a lot. He says that, there's experiencers who have heightened senses a lot of times, and maybe that we're wired a little bit differently than
Yes.
the rest of our family, friends, community. Yeah, do you feel like maybe you're wired a little bit differently?
Honestly, yes, I do. Yes, I will admit that, although it's not it's not the sort of thing to say. But yes, Philip and I are wired a bit differently, I think. I mean, it's funny, thinking about it now. When we were younger, the world was alien to us, even though we're being taught things like. I know it sounds strange, but when you see people kissing, then as kids, you see people kissing. It seemed alien to us, strange. I couldn't I couldn't understand why they said baby, my baby. It's so primitive to us, even as children. It didn't gel. It didn't seem to work. And we had our own secret language as well, Philip and I. Now, I didn't know twins or people who were close had secret languages then, but I found out later on they do. But we even had our own secret language. It was as if
Interesting.
the world was very strange to us both. And I'm going to tell you this now. The pupils would even agree that we were strange. We always had it from them. I thought it was because we were just twins. I don't know. But, they weren't horrible to us, but some of them were. But we were an oddity to them. And the world was very strange. And this is honest. I'm being very honest with you. I don't know why. I mean, it's interesting when you look at people, their lives. Things like when they used to say "my baby," "my dolly," and it was strange. It was primitive to Philip and myself. I mean, we spend our time at home drawing pictures and little exercises books, and we'd entertain ourselves in our room, doing plays and taking the mickey out of people, degrade them, not in a nasty fashion, but like via acting. Our record player, there was, give you an example, there was a teacher at Fastness, and her name was Miss Horton. And I don't know what it was, we were probably about that age, 13. And we used to mimic her. Even her walk, we got her gaits down to perfection. And we had a record player. We used to play Go with Adventurers on there. And there was one tune which we played again and again called Escape by Go with Adventurers. And it just fitted this theme. If the pupils at school had seen us doing this or playing with our puppets, or our toys, even at that age, they would have thought we were absolutely balmy. So when you say wired, now I can comfortably say yes, because I don't care anymore. You get older, and it seems to you don't care, do you? You're not bothered when you're down the rabbit hole. Why should you care? People have called you liars, and they called me a liar and a cheat, and just for the money. I don't care what they think. They can do what they want. They can think what they want. I don't care. But yes, we were wired.
Everybody's a badass on a computer, emails, texts. They can, yeah. Here's a question for you, Maria. How much paranormal activity did you or your brother experience in the home you lived in? If any?
That's a very interesting point. Yes, there was not. I don't think in Hazelbury Crescent in Luton where the snatching was. I can't remember. I don't think there was, but certainly prior to that there was. Yes, there was when we were living in the property of Bignell House in one of the cottages there. One of my relatives could hear children running around upstairs when we were fast asleep. Now, the cottage was off-road. It was anywhere near. It was secluded. It was in the property of Bignell House. And this relative of ours could hear us running backwards and forwards, but it wasn't us. When they came upstairs to have a look, we're tucked in our beds. There was, and it was a lot. It was quite, yes, that's an actually very good point that I think I have mentioned in my book. I'm not sure if I mentioned it this one or the other one, but there was paranormal activity when we were very young. Certainly, yes, there was.
Here's another one. Susan asks, it is said we agree to this before birth. Does Ronald believe this? Now, first when I saw this,
Is
I
this
thought
like
I
a
knew.
soul contract? Is that what she's
I
talking
think
about? Maybe.
that's what I'm thinking. But what do you
Yeah,
think?
well, yeah, it's quite possible. I don't know. I mean, we can't rule anything out with this, you see. And I'm not arrogant in assuming that the aliens are this or the aliens are that, or if they are aliens. Just as I would not contest the reality of a spirit world, which I now know is a reality to myself. I'm not going to tread anyone's toes there. I have to make it clear, everyone has a belief. Even if they don't believe in it, that's fine. You carry on. Just don't annoy anyone else by stating you're full of B. But yes, it's quite possible. It's quite possible, that is, yeah.
There's a pooper in every party. Just saying. Your mama, Tiffany Queen Colleen, that's funny. Erica's husband is a twin, and she always says they have their own language.
Ours was acoustic. It wasn't written. We didn't have it. It's not like a language you would write down. Ours was acoustic. It was based on certain sounds which would identify a certain person, like old women, old men, professors. It goes on, and I can't do it now because it would be racially what do they call it, racial discrimination. But it wasn't. It was harmless. It wasn't anything to do with that. You see, we're now in straitjackets where anything you say, or you can't move because you're attacked one way or another. You can't. So, but it was acoustic. It wasn't a written language. We just used sounds, and these sounds using and they were very subtle. So if anyone's passing, we would warn each other by doing a quick sound, and that would identify the particular person, what they are, an old man, an old woman, in our own terms, which I can't. I can't relay that because that's very naughty. We had a language, yes.
All right. Well, us guys that talk offline. Speaking of can't, Tracy says twins usually feel each other's pain as well. Correct? You do that? Do you say ouch when he stumps his toe across the room?
No. Okay. I mean, when we were younger, that's an interesting point though. When we were younger, if I was feeling low, he would be low. And if we were thinking the same thing at the same time, we would do that. We would just come out with a word. We were just thinking it. But it seems to have worn off as we got older. It's weaned. I wonder if that's down to conditioning. You see, when you're younger, you're free. You're not constrained by morals or people's own ideas of morals. You're not hampered by conditioning. The way of the world, basically. So I think you're a bit more open. Just as deja vu was very strong when we were younger, but now it's. I very rarely have it. Once or twice, most of us have that anyway. But it was stronger when we were younger. But a very good point. Yes, when we were younger, yes, but not the pain. It was the feelings.
I'm gonna share some. I'm going to his webpage. I'm trying to share. I'm not sure. Can you see it? Oh, there it is. Okay. So on the webpage, the CincellaTwins.com. Am I freezing? Hello?
I think there might be something. Are you there?
I can hear you. Can you? I'm fine.
Hello?
No?
Yeah, hello? I can see it. It's on the screen.
Can you hear me? Hello? Ron, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yep.
Okay, Tiffany, hello? You can't?
I can hear you and Tiffany. I can hear you both.
I can hear Tiffany too. Tiffany evidently can't hear us. All right, Ron, for the record, what are we looking at here?
That is one of he is Kukulkan. This one here is based on Kukulkan, the Mayan deity that I'm interested in, the Chichen Itza, the ethereal god they worship, but I wonder if he was ethereal, a feathered serpent. I look into him in the Digital Demon. Basically, a rendering, an imagining of him, the Mayan deity Kukulkan. That's the other side is the regular grey there. So he's your regular grey. And underneath that is one of the reptilians.
We're getting here. All right. So look at this.
Yes, I asked Philip when he had his encounter what they look like. Excuse me, sorry. He gave me a description. So basically, they're more or less the same, the dinosaurian, but he's one of the lizards that he saw aboard the ship, or one of a few of them he saw.
This is the most perfect. This is the most perfect image to describe the being that has been in my bedroom many, many, many times. It's the most perfect image I've ever seen. So it's shocking to me to see it.
Yeah, Tiffany, can I ask?
You see this,
I just like to ask.
you see this and you think, good Lord.
I see him often.
This could be the Brad Pitt of their species, though.
The Brad Pitt, I like that. That's nice. Tiffany, do they appear as if do they walk through walls when you see them, or do they just appear? Your reptilians?
They just appear. There's usually a portal that opens. Now I'm the crazy one. Yeah, the portal opens and they come through. A lot of times they initially look like men in camouflage, fatigues, all of that, and then they switch forms, and then they go from this human, and I have no fear of him, and they're like, oh, you're not scared? Okay, I'll show you what you should be scared of. This is what I really look like. And it's like, holy crap. Okay, now you've got my attention. And I've had a lot of situations where immediately following my encounters with them, they're either my dogs or I will have blood coming from us, and it lasts a few days. My dog, he tried to grab my dog a few times, and each time my dog would be defecating with blood for days, and the same thing happened to me almost after every encounter with these guys.
So you're familiar with the reptilians? Yes, that's interesting.
I don't know what he is. All I know is there's some bad situations that can come of him, but I've gotten less fearful over time because there's not been. I feel like I've sort of taken a step back and controlled my fear when they're around, and that's not what they want. They want that fear. An intimidation factor. And when he, I've seen him so many times now that I just look at him and I'm like, you're not so scary. You're just like a man, it just doesn't, it's not like they
break up. Does that break? Sorry, Tiffany.
Does it break up what?
Does that break the fear factor for him? Does he then remain as a man, or is he still reptilian?
No, he still remains. He still remains as a reptilian. But it's sort of strange because now the situation has changed since my fear level. I have to go into a state where I'm like, this is something you can get over. He's not taking you. You're going to be home in the morning. You'll wake up. Everything will be fine. There's all these things that you can tell yourself. I'm going to be fine. You can't do anything to me. And it, as long as you start acknowledging that they can't do a whole lot to you without bringing you back to your situation, maybe that's my ignorance, but I've never, I wake up every day. I'm here. So I think that's the attitude that has changed. The fear over time has lessened, and we have sort of an understanding. It's like, you don't touch me, you don't touch my animals, you don't touch my children. Beyond that, you can do whatever you're going to do. I can't stop it. I can't stop it.
Yeah, this dude clearly looks like he's going to order steak and not a salad. Does that be safe to say?
Kevin. Yeah.
All right. Is this the same? Is this? Yeah. Oh, it's different. Is
the same one, a different angle.
As
I said about ZBrush, you can, when you've made the model, you can turn them around. Once you've made the completed model, the 3D model, you can turn them around. The other angle, I personally like the other angle better, and that was by chance. I was just moving him around, and then he just looked. The angle looked good, and I thought I'll freeze him there, and then produce him as a painting from that. So I'm glad you like him. Thank you. So these are early concepts of them, early ideas I had to try and get them. It took a long time to try and perfect certain things on them. I'm still learning. There's a lot still to learn on ZBrush, but it's like a ball of clay. It's a ball, and you can stretch it, pinch it, manipulate it. It's like plasticine, only more advanced than that. That's a degrading manner I've put it for ZBrush. They are incredible, what you can produce with them by this software. That is a bird creature. I think a description I read somewhere of an alien bird creature. I attempted, I can't remember where. But yes, he is bird-like creature. Alien.
That's amazing.
This is fiction, science fiction. Yeah, he's
Okay.
science fiction. He's
Yeah, that
mind
is
you,
so
is
cool.
he? Because the Sphinx was, I believe, I think most of us can affirm that it used to be a lion. You know, that's why the head's so small. They just chipped away at it. It was originally a lion, and it would make sense because it was constructed in isolation. So for whatever reason, they weren't a lion. So could it be the case of lion people? I don't know, but I done Sakura, or Sakura, as he's known, Sakura the lion. So he could have come from fact, but he's science fiction to me. This
That's
is the Roswell
fantastic.
ship, the crash that for Philip Mantle. I've done some pictures for Philip Mantle as well, some of the spaceships, the saucers. And there, that you see that I mentioned that in the Digital Demon about the Roswell. I published it. I mean, it was published in March, the book, but it was set before for a year, or I think 6 months. It was set. It was just in limbo, waiting to be published. But I mentioned that the Roswell ship, to me, I believe it did happen. I believe there was a crew on board it, but to me, I stated that article that was published in Phenomena magazine. That was wonderful, phenomenal, absolutely lovely publication. Publishers that unfortunately have them included in them by the gentleman, and I accompany sometimes the artwork with it. But I say the Roswell crashed. It just seemed obvious, and I didn't believe that letting down. I believe it was brought down intentionally. It was made to look like an accident, where it could be could it be possible that it's a Trojan horse? You know.
That's a different theory.
Yeah.
I like that one. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Switch gears, Ron.
Yeah, the
I'm gonna share
crew.
some-
Tell us about your
Yeah,
theory on
that's,
that. What is?
Yeah, real quick. Your theory on that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I researched into Roswell, I always knew it was real because the military announced they'd captured a flying disc and then to retract it. I mean, that's a dead giveaway. And then they have these grand pictures of them holding up a piece of tin foil, stating it's a Mogul weather balloon. It was nothing of the sort. They captured something exotic. Now, what if it did happen? I'm not saying it's set in stone, it's a theory, that my argument was, and I stated this, that I find it hard to believe that a ship of such technological capabilities can traverse the cosmos or a dimension and just be overcome or defeated by Mother Nature, a lightning bolt. So it seemed to me that it was brought down by other means. Perhaps the crew were manufactured or cloned or made. They were expendable. They probably didn't know that was going to happen. They were sent or dispatched in a manner to look as though it was an accident, where it was actually deliberately brought down by the people who built it, whoever they are or whatever they are. You know, it's only a theory, but it's a Trojan horse, so that at the time it was brought down, we were gaining grounds technologically. You know, they just finished the Second World War. It was 1947. So, and war pushes technology, you see. So, whatever did this, or who, to my theory, would understand that we would grasp at new sort of cherries. You know, it's gold nuggets for us. So they knew they couldn't crash it. They couldn't crash it in a populated area. That would be a dead giveaway. So they did it just enough where it would raise attention from the military. So, I mean, it's only a theory. You know, I believe that the wonderful author and researcher, oh, do you know what? My God, how terrible of me forgetting his name. Jack, no disrespect to Jack Valet. His book, his new book, Trinity, was brought out in May, I think, of this year. And he suggested this was not the Roswell ship. There was another account that happened before Roswell. But he came up with something interesting. I thought that was fascinating. So we're thinking on the same lines. He refers to it as a gift, that it was deliberately down as a gift, whereas I'd referred to the Roswell ship in my book as a Trojan horse, that it could be possible that this was to gain technology for whatever reason, I don't know. Is it to that we eventually become cybertized, that we're prisoners, we become prisoners in an electronic era? If that's the case, I'm not saying that's what it is, but if that's not, this force who sent it must be extremely cunning, extremely patient. It takes us many, many decades to up our technological clout.
You're freezing up or cutting in now. Yeah, there you go. No, think about it. Let's prior to 1947, there was nothing kind of happening from a technology perspective. Then shit gets real from 1947 till now. I mean, look where the hell we are. In what 70 plus years, how we've advanced. I think we kind of got it. We were gifted with something or whatever things that has just
Jack Valley would like that, the gift.
No, I buy into that. It's kind of boring prior to 1947.
Was it? I wasn't around, Kevin.
Well, I'm only going by what I know of.
I mean, it's only a theory, it's only one thing. You see, the trouble with people is not everyone, but these people, that they pigeonhole everything, and they're so adamant that this is what happened or that is what happened. And we know with Roswell, the testimony is so soiled, there's so many accounts. But I do believe if we just remove all that and look at the raw facts, something exotic did crash there. It was discovered and picked up by the military and taken away. This treasure that was discovered off-world, if it was, which I suspect it was, that's the only logical assumption I can come up with. I don't know about the agenda of it. I don't know, but it was too obvious, that it could not have been lightning or a malfunction, for God's sake, And even if it was, they would have sent a crew to rescue them.
Yeah, the only thing about the fact that if we brought it down, we didn't jump on, we weren't there right after it crashed. I mean, it took days before the military actually showed up. So my thinking, and I guess I'm open-minded to it, but I just think if we knew, if we brought it down, then we would have acted on it a lot sooner. Before someone, in such a open, such a location where, okay, there was the rancher that I think gets founded the next day or whatever, but he was able to tell his story to the town and to the newspaper before the military showed up. And then
that's a good point, Kevin. Good point. And also, if they were in trouble, they would have had a rescue operation. Right. They would have been. Do we really think an advanced species would leave their ship just lying on a primitive world to be discovered by semi-intelligent creatures? I know it's not to demean us. This is from their perspective. No, there was no rescue operation. If there was, they would have taken them. They would have cleaned it up. It was as if it was meant to crash. It was meant to fall from the sky, and there were many others. This is what I stated in Digital Demon. We hear of many others, but you see, they had to look different, the sources and the bodies, so as not to raise suspicion that the same species is having trouble.
Right.
It's very intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, very. No, but the other thing too that I'll add is that it was days before the military showed up, but the narrative is, or has been, is that when the military did show up, they discovered bodies, and they discovered live bodies. Alive. What, I don't know how many. I can't remember now how many were alive. But I guess what I'm going is that you have a UFO crashes in Roswell, or right outside Roswell, the ranch, And it took days before the military showed up. The military does show up, and there's bodies and there's live ones still there. I do believe there was a crash. I do believe that there was some type of exotic thing that, you know, crashed there. But, you know, I guess the more I think about it, it's like the amount of days it led up. I don't know if
if it led up to that many days of till the Air Force arrived, do you think that the bodies would still be there?
Well, the dead ones maybe, but the
live ones?
but the lava was still there. I mean, I'm assuming that the ship was, or the UFO, the radio was like, you know, we got a situation here. We need some help. You know, that kind of, I don't know. I guess it's some kind of being funny now, but
the aliens, I don't know about. I mean, I would imagine it would be manned by something, but you know, I mean, I'm not going to go down the autopsy, that autopsy thing, that nonsense with the autopsy.
Oh, we can show that video if you want.
No, thanks. No, I'm not even interested in that. Let's just assume it had a crew. It might have been on artificial intelligence. We don't know, but something did crash there. So whatever sent it or whoever sent it, if that is the case, let's say if it crashed, I can't prove it did. We can't prove anything, but these are only theories. Then it as you rightly said, Kevin, you're absolutely correct. You know, if it crashed, the military would have been there beforehand. If they'd brought it down, they would have been there beforehand. So it's very bizarre. But you see, I love these things. It's like jigsaw puzzles. You try and put the pieces together. You know, I know not everything makes sense, but you can form a slight vague picture when you actually look into it and you step back. And sometimes simplicity is the greatest thing of all. When you just remove all the testimony and you look at it from the beginning of when it allegedly happened, and you think, well, hang on a minute, something's wrong. And it is wrong. Because, you know, as you said, you correctly stated, if they brought it down, they would have been there. If it was a ship from another dimensional planet and it had been hit by lightning, they would have had a rescue party. And I don't want to hear this nonsense of people saying, oh, there was one, you know, there was light seen. No, if there was a rescue party, they would have made damn certain their crew would have been picked up without any question. No hesitation. They would have picked it up. There was none. Right. So very bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. I have a question. You know, there was a moment earlier when we were talking about interdimensional extraterrestrial from here on Earth. Do you think that there may be I guess what we would call subterranean society for these maybe reptilians or other entities? Do you think there could still be a civilization that we haven't found yet within our Earth?
Absolutely. I mean, anything's possible. Antarctica, underwater, subterranean, it is absolutely possible. As I said, I won't rule anything out because that would make me arrogant. And I'm not arrogant because we can't prove it. We can't prove it, we can't say, but I'm like my grandfather, my lovely grandfather. I'm open to all manners of speculation. Yes, we don't border on stupidity, but certainly, absolutely, the subterranean aspect, certainly I've heard reports or read reports of the Greys having been discovered when a mining operation was occurring, and they accidentally crashed down into the burrow of these Greys.
Yeah, so Dulce, New Mexico. The Dulce Wars, yes.
Yes, it's possible. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I don't see any reason why not.
You mentioned Greys and the it's reptilians. Is there other species or, you know, different types of aliens that you've encountered? Or because supposedly, Tiffany, what's the count? 50, 60 some? Yeah, I'm just saying, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just
I've heard 20, I've heard 58. You know, I don't know. I know I've seen plenty, but I have no numbers. What do you think, Ronald?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know, I'm afraid. I mean, I've looked into the account with the doctors, and I didn't even know what they were, but they're referring to them now as possibly being the Greys. My speciality is more into the Greys and reptilians, as you evidently both know. So I wouldn't know, I'm afraid. I don't know. We hear of these mantids and things. It's possible, but I don't know personally.
Tiffany, you're near and dear to the mantis family.
I do.
Little baby ones.
I have 11 mantis right now, and I have like four species of mantis, male and female each. And I'm excited because this is the first year that I've had different mantises. So
To the point where you name them.
we do name them. I've had hundreds, if not, yeah, there's probably been hundreds over the years. I'm a little odd. How's that? I'm an odd duck.
You're a keeper. Definitely, you're a keeper. Let me go back to the your website here. Would you chat us up on some of your books? I mean, I guess let's go back. I guess as I go down, is this chronological? I mean, is this?
No, not really. It's not chronological.
Okay.
No, these ones you see here. The Ungodly Agenda was a science fiction book Philip and I had published in 2010, which is based in the Dulce, New Mexico, about the reptilian force in coalition with the military. When we'd written this piece of fiction, this was endorsed by David Saperstein. David Saperstein, I'm pleased to say, is a friend of ours. He was the author of Cocoon, the international best-selling author of Cocoon. So he's a friend of ours. So I'm proud to say he offered an endorsement with it. But some people, when we published this book, this science fiction book, they said, you might be onto something with it. So at the time, I wasn't very aware of the reality of the possibility of subterranean bases, but it's possible, isn't it? But the second one, that's the Twin Swords. You see one with Pegasus on. That's my book that was published by Capelban in 2012. That's where I mentioned the grinning dog. So these are out of print. The ones above are Philip's that he had published by Capelban, Reaching for the Divine, Believe, and Sky Crash Throughout Time. They're I think. They're out of print, these three, but they were done. One of them was coded with the British Brenda Butler.
If I click let's chat, is that going to go directly to you right now?
Basically,
we're cutting. Are y'all hearing me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
He just got frozen again.
You do.
Yeah.
I mean,
there we go.
Yeah, Ron. If I keep hitting let's chat, will this take us? Will you answer me? Oh, never mind.
He's just joking.
Yeah, I'm just joking. All right, so what we got here? He's frozen. Oh, can you hear us, Ron?
You're breaking up.
Tiffany, can you hear me?
I can.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Well, Ron, can you hear us? Hello, Ron.
Yeah, the Archons.
Okay.
That one there, it took me 3 years to write. It's science fiction, but it's based on Lucifer. Now, I have a great interest in the underworld, of the demonic aspect. But the Archons, that's my cover as well. This the fallen angels. It's a subjugation of the earth. He's rising, Lucifer. So, and they're technologically advanced. Of course they would be. They'd have a government. He would be their king. So, and he would have a chancellor. Basically, more or less, it's a twisted version of Earth, but darker. Their realm, but they rise up to infiltrate the earth, and what they prepare to do is something very nasty. So that was the Archons. That's fiction. I Grey is it's a very humorous book. I love humor, so I thought, would it be nice if we had a little grey guy coming to the earth, and his mission was to try and pursue one of these draconians. He was about to kill him off, but he's very naughty because his name. The little the bounty hunter. He's a bounty hunter.
So the Grey is a bounty hunter, is what I'm gathering.
Nemesis of theirs. It's like our version of Hitler. They want him killed because he's a ponder. Yeah, he's got to find this rogue and kill him, but it's very humorous. The robot behind him is what he builds to help him, and they argue all the time. So they're always arguing at each other's throats. So this was the bit of humor. It's very naughty, I know. And I don't know what possessed me to write it. I just felt I had to just get it out of my system, and I did. And that's my artwork as well. They're both of them as my artwork.
Well, I love it.
Based on your visitors, something clearly possessed you. We just don't know what possessed you. Okay. What we got here?
The eye is very, very naughty. Very naughty.
Naughty.
These are children's books. This was first published. Naughty. These were done in. These were published in, I think, 2006. The original covers. These are not the original covers. These are the reissues of them. So if anyone sees the older covers, please don't buy them because we don't make a penny off them. You know, they've stopped publishing them. Yes.
Please don't buy them.
No, don't buy them.
Never
Not the
heard a
old
writer, an author. Please don't buy.
But these buy these. I mean, they're only. I think these are $1.99. I think they're $1.99 each as a Kindle. You can get the paperback.
Oh, that's awesome.
Basically, they were published by a publishing company, but they only last so long, the print, and then they give up the rights. They revert back to you. But we reissued these books ourselves. The Rockbottom Twins. These are comical as well. Basically, they're twin brothers, 60, grumpy, and they're bone idle and they don't do any work. So they build this robot. They rush him. They hastily assemble him and try and earn some money from it, and it backfires. The first one is the one where it backfires. But we did a trilogy of them. The second book is when they build a mechanical elephant. His name's Trunkaflunk.
Trunkaflunk.
Trunkaflunk, yeah, he's cocky. You see, everything they build takes on their persona, so it becomes equally cocky. Yeah, so that was endorsed by Boris Felicio and Julie Bell. Boris Felicio and Julie Bell are the incredible artists, science fiction and fantasy artists, very well known in your great country. Boris Felicio and Julie Bell, lovely, lovely souls.
All right, what we got here?
Okay, these two, they're Philip's books. Guardians of the Dead looks into his psychic work.
Philip is in your brother.
Yeah. And it looks into the road he's taken with it. A Passage to Eternity, that's to do with the aliens, and spirituality. He's fusing the two together. Wonderful books. I will say that because it's my brother, but he does write with passion. And this one here with the dog is science fiction for children as well. Most of these are illustrated. They're fully illustrated. So
and everybody definitely wants to buy these. You want them to buy these. Right.
Yeah. There's a reason why with the other ones, because what happened was the lease went and we don't get anything for them. Well, you can't blame me, can you, for saying it?
No. Do you not have any stock at your house? You can't just we can't just order directly from you.
What kind of expense is that? That's coming from
everything comes from another country, Kevin.
Well,
look at Amazon.
They were published by a publishing company, and they've stopped publishing them now. But this Introducing UFOs, a wonderful book, is a young person's guide. It's Philip Mantle's brainchild to educate young people on the phenomena of UFOs. Fantastic read, loads of cases in there, and he got me to illustrate some of them. So I was very honored to illustrate this book. This Introducing UFOs is to try and break the young into the subject, so that they are familiar with cases like Betty and Barney Hill, the Kenneth Arnold incident, and things like that, and so on and so on. So that's very educational, that one of Philip Mantle's. The Digital Demon is what we're discussing at present, and You, the Public Deceived, is Philip's book based on his own abduction of 1989.
Oh, very nice.
And also his theories, and also a lot of accounts in there, and his theories on the aliens.
Gotcha. Oh.
Okay.
We are back. Well, I thought we were gonna initially prior to the show, we were like, man, I know it's 1 a.m. your time, and we want to be cognizant that it's late, and here we are 2 hours later.
I'm slowing down. Yeah, I'm slowing down.
He's slowing down. So let's start wrapping this up. Great conversations tonight. So we touched the KinsellaTwins.com is the website. Where else can people find you?
On Facebook under my name, either Philip Anthony Kinsella, that's my brother, or Ronald James Kinsella, that's myself, Facebook. And I think that's it. I went on Twitter, I'll be honest with you, and it must have been the quickest withdrawal ever. I went on there, and within 24 hours it came off. It's horrible. Good
I
God, I can't
agree.
stand it. It's like, it's terrible. It's changed. It's shot the
Yes.
little birdie down, you know?
I agree.
So far.
Birdie down.
But Facebook is nicer. I like Facebook, even though that is controlled. I know. We know all about that. But
Yeah, but it's
on
free
Facebook,
and it's an easy way to get your point across.
Yeah.
Just don't
Unless you get
do
blocked
anything
by
to
me.
don't do anything to put on restricted Tiffany, that kind of thing. But
we've all been there. Come on, even I've been there. I have been to Facebook jail.
I've never been. I can control myself.
I can't.
Media, clearly. Ron, it was great to hang with you. I know it's pushing, 3 a.m. your time, right?
Yep.
Coffee's wearing off. Mountain Dew wearing off. Great hang.
Wearing
Tiffany.
I'm wearing out.
Yeah, there you go. Tiffany, final words for Ron.
Ron, thank you for sharing all of your stories with us. It's a long journey, and I'm glad that you have chosen to put out your information and share it with the world, with us. And I just want to, give you props on writing your books and doing all of your artistic endeavors when it comes to trying to show what you saw. And I think that the more that we do, the more that we can try to explain and try to share and let people know that these are happening. That's the goal. Just get your story out there. People, go buy a book, go buy 2 books, go buy 5. Apparently there's plenty to choose from. So
let's give a shout out to Sherry.
Yeah.
We put the website up. She went out, and I think if I read her message right, she bought some of the Kindle versions.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you.
Ron, thanks so much. I want to do it again, set it up where I want you and your brother on. So
Okay.
maybe even
lovely.
Philip Mantle. Yeah.
Yeah.
the
lovely Philip Mantle. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll
He's
get that
lovely.
figured out. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. Have a good
Thank
night
you.
or good morning,
Yeah.
I should say.
Good morning. No, I just want to say thank you to both Kevin and Tiffany for having me on. You've been super, and I've really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
myself on here. It's been fantastic.
Good.
Thank you
Do it
so
again.
much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.